Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 121 of Two Amazon Sellers and a Microphone, brought to you by Solozo. Today, Kris and I are very excited to be talking with Chelsea Cohen from SoStocked. How are you, Chelsea?
I'm doing good. We're entering summer, which is crazy, but a lot of exciting things happening this summer. So yeah, doing well.
Yes. Hopefully it's a more normal summer than last
summer.
Yes.
Yes. Hopefully. Well, we're in Texas, so it's starting to feel a little bit normal.
Yeah. Same for us here in Missouri. It's nice. Everyone's traveling again. Like you were talking about Prosper. It's fun to be thinking about more normal things again, for sure. But
exactly.
Well, we're excited to have you on. We're going to talk about inventory-minded marketing. And before we started, I was like, inventory and marketing is not really something you hear in the same sentence very much.
Yeah.
It's usually two different sides of the brain. So I can't wait to talk about that. But before we do, for anybody who's listening right now who doesn't know you or know SoStocked,
sure,
give us a little background. How did you get into the Amazon space, and tell us about SoStocked?
Yeah. So I was looking for an opportunity to get into having my own business. And so Amazon really kind of came by accident. I had myself looped into a multi-level marketing, thing. And, going around asking my friends if they wanted to join my deal. And, and they all said, well, that sounds great, but we're putting our money into this Amazon course. It's called Amazing Selling Machine. And it was kind of, back in the day. And, as we continue to hear that, my husband turned to me, he's like, this sounds a lot better than what we're doing. So, we did that, started making sales. So I've been selling since 2014. And it was around 2018 that I started just realizing that we had this, profit crunch, slowly our revenue to profit ratio was starting to shrink. And I was trying to figure out what are those things that I can actually control. And inventory was a big part of the issue that we were having, stocking out or, over ordering, having a lot of fees in terms of, warehousing, loans that you borrow, for the money that you then is still sitting in the warehouse unsold. And I decided I had to get good at inventory management, and couldn't find any tools out there that would really work well. All of my friends were saying that they, had given up on the tools. They'd gone back to their spreadsheets. And I saw that as an opportunity. Obviously, if a spreadsheet can do it, a software can do it. And kind of that's how SoStocked was born. I actually spoke at an event with Dan Fernandez, who founded Thomason.com. If you guys remember, about 2015, Thomason. So he has, built SaaS businesses for the past 10 plus years, has a whole team, and we basically connected up and built SoStocked from the ground up, starting in mid 2018, launched in 2019.
Fascinating. I love your story as a seller. You're preaching to the choir with Kris and myself. We both have similar stories. It's interesting. We both started in 2014, also same sort of time as you. And you around that 2000, something happened in 2018. That time, it was like, okay, we've really got to focus a lot harder on what we're doing here. There's more competition. Everyone's prices are going to the bottom. And it was a very interesting, challenging time for myself, for sure. You had to sort of reorganize what you're doing. But it's interesting to hear you talk about inventory as, one of those things that you can control. I was always the mindset, I was like, I better not go out of stock. So like ordering. Of course, when you order to not go out of stock, you're leveraging money somewhere, and that causes its own problems. So I like that you laser focused on that, and then you pivoted and turned it into SoStocked. That's a really fascinating story. So why don't you just give a quick overview of what SoStocked does?
Sure.
More.
Yeah, so SoStocked was actually built with a lot of support from the seller community. We built it out and we started beta testing it with 25 sellers, and within less than 6 months of working with them, we completely ripped out the forecasting algorithm and rebuilt the demand platform from basically the ground up, because we found that even if you put an algorithm into place, if it wasn't understandable and it wasn't customizable, it wasn't going to be used. And I think that was a reason why some of these other platforms really haven't worked out, is because they didn't really, if you're ordering and you're, running a business, you want to understand where the numbers come from. You don't want a magic number that you can't kind of backtrack into. So we completely changed that. So first of all was, something that was fully understandable, fully customizable. But in talking to, I've onboarded hundreds of sellers. My business partner was running the help desk up until about 6 months ago when my husband took over. And so all of the feedback came directly to the two founders of the company. So we were able to really pivot quickly. And it was at the moment that we changed the way that we looked at it. We basically said to our 7 and 8 figure sellers, send us your spreadsheets, let us know what works with them, what doesn't, and then we retooled it for that we started getting word of mouth, and we started having large seller communities continue to send people. There was a word of mouth that was sending people to SoStocked, and that was when we figured out that we really had gotten something right.
Yeah, I'm starting to notice that a lot. I'm starting to see SoStocked all over the place now. People talking about it. People saying, go check out Chelsea. She's got a cool tool that'll help you with your inventory. So it seems like that last couple of years, it's kind of really pivoted, and you're starting to get a lot of word of mouth. What is something that's in the tool that you purposely made for SoStocked that doesn't really exist in other tools? Like what's something that is like a big selling point with SoStocked?
Yeah. So really it's the ability to put your marketing plan into your inventory plan. And that's what we started, we actually created coined the term inventory minded marketing. And there was this big hole that we felt in talking to all of the sellers, talking to, their inventory managers, talking to PPC agencies, asking PPC agencies, how often have you stocked your client out? Have you ever stocked a client out? And it's always yes, because up until recently, a lot of brand managers, a lot of PPC agencies have divorced themselves from inventory. They haven't wanted to be responsible for it. And that's shifting because they're realizing how much it impacts and how little the seller actually has a handle on that. It's changing now. We're seeing a shift in that over the past year or so. But that was kind of where we stepped in, and we saw that marketing needs to be, part of this conversation. So there are tools in there, you can say, enter an increase and say, these say 5 SKUs, we're going to start aggressively marketing with PPC. So we're going to increase the sales on this. We're going to take the sales data, but increase it by 20% because we're aggressively marketing. And then you'll be able to see whether or not that's going to stock out any one of those SKUs. Or you have a lightning deal that's planned and you see, okay, well, you think that you can market something, let's do on a whim a Mother's Day sale, but you have this lightning deal coming up and actually that's going to stock you out. So let's not do the Mother's Day sale, but let's look at in the future, what are those things that are coming up that we should be planning for? So you should be actually, 3, 6, 12 months planning out your year and figuring out how you can build in these marketing events rather than, doing it on a whim and stocking yourself out, or just losing out on an opportunity to, do a flash sale for a holiday, in general.
That's unique because a lot of the other tools will just say like you'll do seasonality will be a thing, or you'll do how many days you have left of inventory will be like an issue. But you're actually taking, like if someone's letting a lightning deal, if they're doing heavy PPC, you're actually adding that. They're actually adding that to their inventory so they know how much they actually need to get in the future. Whereas other tools aren't really accounting for that. That's basically what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. That was the big kind of stumbling block is there's, I like to say that inventory is, one part science and one part art. And the science is the past data and the art is the future planning. And there's a lot of the future planning art portion of inventory management that has been missing in the past.
Now, this is an area where sellers would just kind of shoot in the dark. Like, I'll get 750 units and I'll get 1,000 units and then deal with it later. Like, I'll get 1,000 and I'll send in 500 and then I'll have to head another. Like, we don't think about it ahead of time. We just get what we can get and move on with it. So this is an interesting little area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the whole idea of, getting what you can get, I think that because we let cash flow, cash flow has to be a part of that conversation. We let cash flow kind of drive what our decisions are rather than rethinking our logistics, such as, paying 30% up front for 4 months and then shipping out monthly instead of shipping out all 4 months and having to pay 70% on all 4 months. You can usually work out an agreement where your supplier will hold your inventory for free. You ship out 1 month and pay the 70% on that 1 month and then ship out the next month. And so you can actually work out agreements where you lower the amount of cost you're spending on warehousing by leveraging your supplier, and then leverage your supplier in a creative way to basically float that inventory until you actually ship it.
That's another really unique point as well. That's like, instead of using a 3PL here, you're using your manufacturer for that.
Yeah.
You brought up a really good point earlier about agencies and advertising companies. I mean, Solozo is an advertising company as well, and the disconnect potentially between what the inventory levels are and what like a sound advertising strategy is. I mean, Kris and I, we will do calls, we'll onboard new clients, etc. And typically do you have enough inventory to run these to launch aggressive campaigns? And sometimes they don't. You're like, well, I would not be super aggressive right now with advertising because you are going to run out of inventory really quick. What are in your tool? What are the factors that sellers need to be inputting to make these decisions?
So first, you need to know what data is important to you, what velocity is important. So you can look at some businesses, they want to look at a 30, 60, and 90-day velocity and do the average of that. Some are looking at, shorter term sales velocity, such as 30 and 15-day, just based on, whether they're sharing a buy box, such as wholesalers. So you're kind of narrowing that down. And then also at some point, using last year's sales becomes important when you're doing your planning for, say, Christmas. And then lead time becomes a huge factor. You need to be able to put your lead times and your transfer times, and you need to be realistic, especially now. Lead times have, doubled at some, instances. And so being able to kind of dial that in and say, okay, what used to take 60 days is now taking, 100 days, for example. That's going to change how much you order, how often you order, and when you order. And then what are the various different requirements from Amazon? What is Amazon actually going to allow you to send? And, make your decisions based on that. So most people are actually having to get, third-party warehouses, a local third-party fulfillment center. And you're actually doing two different forecasts. You're doing an order forecast and you're doing a transfer forecast. So those are kind of the main components. And then anything that is a sales event would obviously need to go in there as well.
Yeah, this to me is very interesting. Early on when I started, I did work with a 3PL. I was trying to make bigger orders because I wanted to get the unit costs lower.
Yeah.
But it didn't really work out as a huge savings.
Yeah.
I mean, and then, obviously the worst case scenario is that inventory sits forever if it's not moving. But I like this concept of inventory-minded marketing because I don't think I've thought it through all the way that you're talking about it. So like if I'm looking to, so I've got my inventory in there and I'm using SoStocked, and let's say I'm doing some sort of like ranking campaign. I'm just going to do an aggressive PPC to try to rank. Is your tool telling me like green light, red light, like don't do it? You need, or how much inventory do you need by a certain day? How's that look?
Yeah, so it'll tell you, when you need to place the order and how much. And then once you make a change, all of that's going to shift and it's going to change. And, sometimes it'll fall into an alert. It'll give you, an exclamation point and say, hey, this product is going to run out of stock at some point. If you don't have that, red exclamation point, that you're going to be okay. But if you apply changes, you can actually see what is going to happen. So we actually refer to it as forecast modeling, because you can make changes and see how the inventory is going to respond. We have a timeline where you can see on a daily basis, based on, your planning, when is it going to, restock, or when is it going to stock out? When are your transfers going to be needed? When are your orders going to be needed? And then when will those actually hit at your 3PL or at Amazon?
So cool. Yeah. I feel like really diving in and checking this out, because there's so much efficiency you could use here. So, like a lightning deal.
Yeah.
So you get a lightning deal. So if I was a seller using SoStocked, would I first go to SoStocked and say, look, let's forecast what would happen if I get approved for this lightning deal 3 weeks from now?
Yeah.
And then, so I would do that and then either lock it in or not lock it in. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah. So you would say, okay, the lightning deal would be on, on this date, theoretically, and we think we're going to move 1,500 units on that day. And then you can see, okay, based on everything that we have, we've got POs, because we have a PO creation system and that tracks based on your lead times. Based on the POs that we have, the inventory that we have, at our third-party fulfillment center or third-party warehouse, is this going to be okay? Is this 1,500 units going to be okay? And, it'll show you, no, you're going to stock out, or yes, you're going to be fine. Maybe you'll be close, but you'd actually be able to see on the timeline what's going to happen when that day comes and the 1,500 units leaves Amazon.
There's a lot of inventory restrictions now that
Kris will cut out every once in a while.
Okay.
Gosh, I knew it was going to happen. I was just sitting here shaking my head.
Yeah.
So there's inventory restrictions. It was on the ASIN level. Now it's on the entire count level.
Yeah.
How does that work? Does the seller get a heads up beforehand if they're overhand? Is that anything in your tool to show that at all?
Yeah. So we're about to launch something around that. It was easier to be able to accommodate for the IPI limit change, the ASIN limit change, because Amazon gave us that data and it was, very cut and dry. This is how many per unit. So we had pulled that in and we were using that as something that you could use as a cap for Amazon, and it would do that calculation for you. How often you need to ship in. Right now, Amazon doesn't even give us the restock limit. The numbers don't come in from the API. We're building a platform. We're doing final testing right now, but it's basically where you have a place to input that data until Amazon finally wants to be generous enough to pass it our way. You can change it when, as things update for you, but you will then prioritize the SKUs, and you'll say, these are the SKUs that can never stock out. These are the SKUs that are, are kind of mid-range, and then here's the lowest priority. And it'll do a calculation based on, never stocking out. We're going to try to keep you in stock on everything, but if that's not possible, you'll see that we will be weighted toward specific SKUs that you select.
Got it. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Another question. Let's go into this inventory-minded marketing a little bit deeper. So just what does that mean? What does that necessarily mean? Inventory-minded marketing.
Yeah, actually, I think that it, with the new restock changes, it's actually taken on a completely different meaning than we originally had kind of pinned on it. The original was just getting data from the marketing team to the inventory team, so the inventory team can vet the inventory against, the plans, and inventory can then come back and say, no, you can't do that, you can do this, and then make decisions based on moving forward. We need to order more, or we need to order sooner. So inventory can actually make more educated guesses, rather than always kind of trying to pick up after, the marketing team, which kind of plows through and says, I had this great idea, I found this hack, and now we're out of stock, and it can kind of become, if they're not working together, it becomes actually sometimes more harmful. The amount of money that's lost, we know about the lost revenue, we know about the re-ranking, and also any air shipments that you might have to do. But the portion that's not generally been quantified is the amount of money you paid to Amazon ad platform to run yourself into a stock out. If you paid your agency, if you did coupon discounts, all of that money that could have been, used on full price sales to maintain until the inventory came back in stock is also just something that we haven't really analyzed. So it can be very costly. So the first step of inventory management is getting the data from marketing to be coordinated with inventory.
Got it. And then running out of stock, like if you run out of stock as a seller, that's like the biggest thing to go against. Like you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So having a tool that tells you, when to repeat. And I like the PO creation. That's pretty neat.
Yeah. Yeah. Running out of stock is the biggest issue, and it's a bigger issue because of how the restock limits work now. Amazon's algorithm is not intelligent enough to take a look at, or they haven't made it intelligent enough, it could be, to look at what you would have sold if you hadn't run out of stock. It's just, what did you sell? Okay, that's what you get. So it becomes even more detrimental to run out of stock. And, no matter what it costs, even if you're losing money shipping it over, sometimes you want to get something in stock. So that's a portion of the planning involved. The other side of things, the thing that has really been interesting, we all kind of felt like we were told that this storage type shift would be a good thing. All felt it was, generally actually more of a bad thing. I think that it's actually lending to more creative thinking in terms of inventory. First of all, marketers now, they've used to be revenue generators, and now they actually have to sell through inventory. And sell through is the other metric that they're now partially responsible for. And so that's kind of where inventory-minded marketing has taken a bit of a shift to including, that actually inventory needs to give data to marketing, sell out, stock out risk reports, overstock reports, slow seller reports, liquidation reports, things where you set certain metrics. And that's something that we've created dashboards that you can customize to say, what is a liquidation, what is on the liquidation chopping block for you, what is overstocked for you, for your business. And those should go from inventory to the marketing team, because there's a lot of things that can be done. And I think that the thing that people aren't thinking about in terms of when you stock out, you're going to lose all that velocity. But if you have a bunch of overstock, if you could run a flash sale, you could actually try to recover some of that velocity. Or, you've got Shopify and you want to fulfill your switch to MCF and fulfill your Shopify, whatever you have left in there through Amazon. Amazon's going to use that as to bolster that restock limit. So there's a couple of different things that can be done to help to bolster that restock limit when you stock out of another product.
Yeah, I really like how it's like a inventory focused tool. Like that's what we focus on is inventory. Yeah. And it makes it like you're gonna try to be the best at inventory. So that's the tool.
Yeah, and it's actually been interesting because we've had to be educators. First, we've had to educate ourselves on understanding more about what is happening in Amazon and what are those things that are tools in our disposal based on the way that the system works, but also had to educate people now because a lot of people haven't really learned about inventory. And so even some of the things that seem to be, obvious are things that are, big takeaways. Like I was on a call, and one of the big takeaways was, I said, don't let anyone have all of your stuff. And that was a big takeaway. And I was like, it's kind of obvious, but, it takes, I think, those experiences where you put everything on a boat and it can't arrive in time. You could have left a month's worth of inventory, at your supplier and only airshipped it if needed. But you put everything on the boat and, you're screwed. Or you sent everything to Amazon and you could have had a fulfillment center, but they're taking 5 weeks to check something in, for example.
Yeah, you got to get creative. You either got to like air freight some stuff in and then ship the rest by sea. Because you're right, you don't want to run out. Now, does this work in all marketplaces?
Yeah, we're working on getting it into some of the less popular marketplaces. With one of Amazon's they have something called the SP API there's some bugs that they're working out on that.
Gotcha.
But right now we're in North America territories as well as UK and EU.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is shifting my mindset a little bit on this whole concept. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've begged myself, please airship. I need five boxes right now. Airship these. Yeah. And you brought up a point, is that's a layer of cost that could have been avoided if you plan. And I think the whole premise here is if you can make this inventory really efficient, you're just eliminating costs at every possible step of the way.
Yeah.
But how much of the data is coming straight from Amazon, like through their API that you're relying on, and how much are you running your own algorithms on to make determinations? Because I mean, like you mentioned, I'll stock out.
Yeah.
Then 2 months later or whenever, when I have inventory, Amazon will say, "Oh, we recommend you ship in 50 units," and you're like, "I was selling 50 units a day."
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
So how does that data break down for you guys?
Yeah. So in a case like that, we have something called the stock out calculation, where we look at what's happening with your inventory, and we will take an average of the 15 days before and 15 days after, or the 30 days before. What were you selling before you stocked out, right? What were the sales looking like? And we'll do a calculation to figure out what, if you hadn't stocked out, what would you have sold during that time? So the stock out calculation, and there are a lot of systems that do stock out calculations, but people don't realize that it's important to understand how those work, right? Some of them just look at, did you have inventory? And that's, a given, right? If you didn't have inventory, then you didn't have sales, obviously. But the other aspect is there are periods of time where you stock out, where the day before you stock out fully, you sold, say, 25% of what you should have sold. And that's getting into the calculation. If you're looking at 30-day, average, one day can be a big portion of that average, especially if you're selling, 1,000 units a day. And then you have Amazon selling that one unit, and then that one unit gets counted as a full day of sales, or you are suspended. They don't, some of them don't even look at suspensions because you had inventory. So they're just looking at inventory. So you're suspended all this time. So we're looking at anything that was zero inventory, or if you've got a product that's selling more than 10 units a day, because anything below 10 units, it gets really hard to kind of, parse that down. But anything more than 10 units a day, if your sales drop by 30%, we're calling that a stock out. And then you can log in and you can tell us, no, that wasn't a stock out. You can actually go day by day and add that data back in. But that's something that, and that's something that you can actually control yourself. But that would be, just generally how our calculation is working.
It's so interesting. This is fascinating. What about managing cash flow? So inventory is a huge part of this.
Yeah.
And you make a decision, if you've got, an order that's $10,000 or $20,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
As soon as you outlay that, if that's going to be inventory that's going to take you 6 months to sell, it might be better to have spread that cash flow out differently. How does your tool help somebody manage the best way to spend their cash flow on inventory?
Yeah, so we haven't touched that yet. We are wrapping up some of the pieces for inventory, including integrations into, some of the other more obvious platforms like Shopify. And then we'll be getting into cash flow. And that's where we get into, just as we're doing forecast modeling, we'll get into cash flow modeling so that you can take the data that you have and, look at how much money you have, what is available, and then actually model out the situation and say, okay, I'd actually make more money if I, ship smaller orders more frequently. I set this thing up with, my supplier where they hold that inventory and I pay it, out each month rather than sending it all and storing it. Those calculations that you're able to do that kind of cash flow modeling to see, and also when are you going to run out of stock and how do you, what funding do you need to have in place well in advance? Because, sometimes you look at, we're running out of cash and we can't get the funding, until, X date. And sometimes X date is, 2 weeks too late.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a lot of stories on that.
Yeah.
Funding can always be a tricky issue. In that, what's like a big win that you're seeing? When people are coming on, they're much more focused on their inventory levels. Are you seeing just cash flow opening up for your clients? What's the big win that they're getting out of all this?
Yeah, so my two favorite stories, one of them is especially when the IPI limits became a big issue and everyone was talking about it. One of our longest running users, he's one of the first 25 users, and he actually didn't come directly through our community. He came through the Amazon App Store. Just, really great success story. We've now, become friends. And he was able to maintain a high 700s IPI score from using the tool. So that was an awesome. And he says, the testimony is given to having used SoStocked for, now I think over about 2 years he's been using it. Since July 2019. And so that was a cool story. But in terms of, financially, there was a seller who mentioned that she used to pay $1.20 per unit. And then when she switched to SoStocked, she was able to get control of her shipping so that she didn't have to always do these expensive air shipments. She went to about 45 to 55 cents per unit.
That's huge.
That is huge.
Yeah. So those things, so you start to do kind of some of the math on some of those things, depending on the volume. We've had, seller save 150,000, when he, doing the math, it would equal out 150,000 worth of savings per year on getting away from the air shipments versus the ocean shipments. So, those types of things. The other thing that I know that you talked to Elevate Brands about selling brands, and one of the things I talk to aggregators about is how much money they actually save with people either stocking out or overstocking. And one of the aggregators said we scooped up $45,000 in immediate equity because it was a 3x multiple, and this guy had overstocked fees of $15,000.
Oh, geez!
Wow.
So that's either something that you're either giving immediate equity to an aggregator, or you're keeping that in your pocket.
Well, it's definitely an area sellers need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Inventory.
And that's fascinating. Coming at it from the angle of an aggregator.
Yeah.
And obviously your profitability is much higher if you're in stock the whole time and not running out of it. But I can see that from their point of view, that's an opportunity. If they see someone who's good, but they've been out of stock, they know they can fix that by paying close attention to it.
Yeah.
You also mentioned the IPI number. That number scares me sometimes. I always look at that. I'm like, oh gosh.
I know. I hate looking at that number.
Why is that now? Why is that going down?
Yeah. I was actually did a quick sent an email to someone. They were asking about their in stock rate, and they said, should I close the listings that I have right now that don't have stock in them, and improve my in stock rate? And it's kind of a complicated question, but it's not a hard, fast yes or no. And sometimes people can close those down and they're actually not, it's not actually valuable at helping. So yeah, it's a tricky thing. But as long as you stay over the 500, you should be safe. And as long as Amazon doesn't, creep that back up.
Well, before we wrap it up, let's talk about the flip side. Okay,
Sure.
Going out of stock is horrible.
Yeah.
But being way overstocked in Amazon is also horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is your system doing to, like, is there an alert like, hey, this product is now in a different phase. We got to get rid of it fast. Mm-hmm. How does that happen inside your platform?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say an alert. There's filtering. I originally started trying to build out a do-it-yourself platform before I built SoStocked with Airtable. And Airtable is this great free tool. Of course, they have a paid version, but it's kind of like a spreadsheet on steroids. And I really kind of fell in love with the features. And so that's something that we built in to our system, was the ability to hide columns, to group, to do advanced filtering. So you can take all of your data and you can say, I want to look at everything that's, that has Amazon, FBA days above 90. So more than 90 days worth of inventory. And so you can immediately identify the SKUs and then send that report to your marketing team, for example. And there should be, that should be one of the things that you do send to your marketing team. And so you should constantly be looking at that on a regular basis, because it's based on the velocity. So as the velocity decreases, it can move into that category. And, as the velocity increases on products, you can have a slow sales report where you're looking at, anything but below 20 units a day, maybe for a business, or maybe for someone it's 5 units a day. Those are various different reports that can be built, because it's very customizable to the business. Each business, has a different definition of what that is. But those are some of the reports, on a weekly basis, or say a monthly basis, depending on the speed of the business, the inventory team should be sending to the marketing team, and the marketing team should have a plan to move those out, whether that's removal orders or liquidation program, which don't add to your velocity, or you're doing things like, lightning deals, or say outlet deals, or flash sales just, on your own. All of those will add to velocity. So those are a better choice, because they're adding to velocity and they're also removing stock. So they'll actually give you kind of two different approaches to trying to increase that restock limit.
Really cool. I'm always running lightning deals. Anytime I can get one, just turn it on. Because I know that I got to get my IPI up higher, and that's one of the factors that's going to help me is sell-through, sell-through inventory. So
I honestly think that sell-through is the number one and only metric, truly. If you look at what sell-through is and how Amazon defines sell-through, and that sell-through has to do not only with the inventory. They define it as, the number of units you sell in 90 days divided by the average utilization, or the average inventory that you're holding at their warehouses. So the average inventory includes excess inventory. Stranded inventory has to do with excess inventory that you can't sell. And also your in-stock rate will go down, because which will affect your sell-through rate. So all of those metrics on the IPI score, all are really just other ways of looking at sell-through. That's all Amazon cares about. They don't want to be a storage facility. They want to be a distribution center. And this is their way of kind of trying to force that issue.
I think you're right, because when I look at the metrics on mine, all of them are in the green, and then that sell-through is in the yellow a little bit, but it's killing my score because of that. And I think that's because it gets all the weight.
Yeah. So and it's even possible that inbound shipments count as, because when you look at your utilization, inbound shipments count as the utilization at FBA. So my thought is that they also count towards your sell-through. So if you, put on a slow boat to China, you put your FBA labels on, and then send it, and it takes, 45 days to get there, that's all weighing down that utilization. And, that sell-through carries that, whatever you've done 90 days ago, that's finally dropping off. So you do something today, it's going to live with you for 90 days.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that either. I would have thought only once it's checked in.
Got checked in.
Is it actually, but I can see them using that in their calculation for sure, because they know it's coming. They're probably having to, I mean, they've got to figure out their space and what's gonna be in there. I'm really interested in this whole concept, and I know that everyone who's listening to this and watching this, if they haven't been focused on this, this is piquing their interest as well. What if anybody's looking to get started with you? Tell them, what do they need to do? How do they get set up?
Yeah, so I mean, you just go to SoStocked.com and you can sign up there. You can also, if you have questions or want to connect with me or want a demo, if you go to SoStocked.com/connect, I have all my socials there, my emails there, and then we also have links to demo. We do a live demo twice a week.
And what does the setup process look like? So let's say I signed up. I mean, my data imports, and then what's on me to get set up?
Yeah, so we do have an in-app kind of guide that kind of walks you through some of the things that you need to set up. And then after you do that, we have a mini course that you can go through. But what you will do after you get that it's about 5 points to be set up, you'll schedule an onboarding call. And so we have live onboarding calls where it's one-on-one and you work with one of our teammates that will walk you through anything that you might have missed, any questions that you might have. And so that's something that we've been doing since the beginning, and it's been successful for us. Is if someone needs a call, they just book a call and we can jump on there.
What's something that's coming in the pipeline? What is something that you're going to add? I know you touched on a few other things, but what's something that's a project in your board that's going to be released hopefully soon?
Yeah, so pushing the restock limits, that's one we're really working hard to try to get that out. And then we've got the integrations that will be a big one. Right now we're looking at integrating with 5 different platforms. It would be Shopify, Walmart, eBay, ShipStation, and Deliver to start. And then after that, the pivot will really be into the cash flow modeling, which I think will take a good chunk of time. Then logistics modeling, which will be a little bit more in depth of, if you change the units per carton, what would that look like? And then how would that affect the cash flow? I think, once those things are integrated, that's basically kind of the bulk of what we want to do, how to save you money, the profitability side of the tool. And then machine learning, more machine learning we'll be getting into eventually.
Very nice.
I encourage everyone to check this out.
Cool.
Go to SoStocked.com, sign up, get it. I mean, this is why I absolutely love doing this podcast. And I know Kris is the same. Is anybody who's selling, typically, it's a small team or the one-person
show,
one-man show, one-woman show, and it's that you can't be thinking about these things in the depth they need to be thought about all the time. You're either in product research mode or you're dealing with some fire over here. But this is an area where I will be 100% upfront. It's all in here. There's no software going on. I'm like, I think I need about 2,000 units. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And I'm really intrigued by how this can streamline things, make things a lot easier, and just take something off the plate. I mean, sometimes inventory management is not the most fun thing to be focused on.
It's something that people, because it is in your head, you don't pass it off to a VA, but there are things that can be done. And really, it's something we call it min-max restocking. You set a minimum of never go below this, maximum never go above this. Maybe it's 30 days is your minimum, 90 days is your maximum. And then a VA can actually do it. It's like, McDonald's has a system and now people can, run a hamburger joint. It's the same thing, you got this system, you say between this, and then they give you the data and maybe you make the final call. But as long as your marketing team is sending data to your inventory team and then you set those parameters, it becomes a lot easier to push that off your plate.
Really, it's like an SOP for your VA right there. This is what you do. This is when you order.
Yeah, and we actually had we have a full SOP. Once everything's set up, we have a full SOP that was built out by a company called Escala. Which, if you don't know, I should definitely connect you up with those guys because it's really smart SOP builders.
Oh, I like that.
That is cool. Well, Can we get you on in the future? Because this, the landscape changes all the time.
Yeah.
Dude, well, if we'd have had this conversation last year, we wouldn't even been talking about inventory restrictions.
Yeah.
But so let's do that. We'll get you back on again. And thanks so much for joining us. This has really been eye-opening. And I know that's been valuable for everyone who's tuning in to this to check it out. So thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. It was a great conversation.
We loved it. And for everybody listening, if you like conversations like this, if you'd like to learn something new on our journey, this Amazon FBA journey we're all on, please subscribe to the podcast. We go live almost every day with amazing people like Chelsea, and we talk about all aspects of Amazon and the entrepreneur life that you can have selling Amazon FBA. So subscribe to the podcast. We do our live streams on Facebook, Solozo's Facebook page, and Solozo's YouTube channel. So make sure that you're subscribing and liking all of those channels so you can see these great interviews we have. Chelsea, thanks so much, and we'll do it again.